Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
It's Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. MAGA folks love to say what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have wanted today, but they never really listen to any of his speeches, especially when it comes to the issue of being woke. Journalist Michael Harriot of Contraband Camp will explain his latest article, What MLK Would Have Wanted. A former U.S. Democratic senator has re-entered the political arena, officially running for governor of Alabama. We'll talk to Doug Jones about his plans to beat Tommy Tuberville in deep red Alabama. A new report from the United Negro College Fund highlights leadership at historically black colleges and universities and emphasizes the importance of retaining presidents for their success and also for boards to get the hell out of the way. Tonight we'll break down what this means for student, staff, and the future of HBCUs by having Walter Kimbrough, of course, of the UNCF and a former president of a couple of HBCUs. Speaking of boards who are clueless, well, Morris Brown College announced today that a week after firing Dr. Kevin James, they are reinstating him as president. Yeah, I got a whole lot to say about that, and we'll also have a woman who actually called it and said, yeah, this was gonna happen. Hashtag we tried to tell you. And Donald Trump shows his racism again, going to the podium at the White House to trash Somali Americans. No shock. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, we talk about every year how folks quote Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but typically it's only a couple of sermons or speeches that he gave. And as I said, what they really want is a Dr. King who is nice and loving and kind and really is a civil rights bobblehead or a civil rights teddy bear. Well, Michael Harriot, of course, founder of Contraband Camp, broke this thing down in his piece, Everyone Claims to Know What MLK Would Have Wanted. You know, they love talking about, oh, he wanted color blindness and silence and comfort. And Michael's like, nah, that's some bullshit. He joins us right now. Michael, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, it really does. Listen, I've even taken black audiences to task for only playing the bottom of his mountaintop speech, not the other 41 minutes. I said to the MLK, the City of Dallas event on Saturday, that we have stripped Dr. King of his militancy, his radicalness, his righteousness, and I played a bunch of clips last night, and it just again, as every year goes by, he gets softer and softer and softer, and essentially America's going to turn him into basically Santa Claus.
Yeah, man. You know, and we've been knowing this for a while, and it's part of the product of just whitewashing Black history as a whole, right? You know, we hear the Martin Luther King we know today, when we celebrated for his birthday, white people hated him. Most white people hated him while he was alive, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't like, you know, 60%, right? Like the vast majority of white people had a positive reaction to everything Martin Luther King did. And when it comes to him speaking to people and what he would have wanted, everything that, you know, we talk about today, DEI, wokeness, critical race theory, Martin Luther King explicitly said that he was in favor of all of that stuff. And the most famous speech that the most frequent speech that he gave was a speech called Remaining Awake During a Great Revolution. And you know, as you could guess, someone like Martin Luther King gave speeches all of the time. So he had a few, you know, that he kept in his pocket and, you know, he switched out every now and then. But most of the time when he was talking to Black audiences, he gave the Remaining Awake speech from 1956, before the end of the Montgomery bus boycott, all the way to, it was the last sermon he gave before he died. His entire civil rights career that we know, he gave this speech from the beginning to the end. It is the most it's the harbinger of what he would have wanted. It's the most explanatory of all of his things. And he would change it, you know, every now and then. But the basic principle of it was, he would start out by talking about the story of Rip Van Winkle. You know, Rip Van Winkle before the American Revolution. And when he woke up, it was a picture of George Washington over his bed. And he realized he had fallen asleep through a great revolution. And he would tell people, the first actual line-by-line recording of it that we see was at Morehouse College in 1958 when he spoke at the commencement ceremony. And he told them, like, if I want you to do anything,
in fact, Michael,
when you leave here.
Michael, hold on. So go to my iPad, Elise. This is from the King Institute at Stanford University, and then dated June 2nd, 1959. And this is the address. So, folk, y'all can actually read this actual. So this is hit right here. And again, if you put in that name, Michael, I also pulled up. He spoke at Oberlin College, June 1965. 6 years later, same speech, remaining awake through a great revolution. And so there are others as well, but go ahead.
Yeah, and what he would do is basically tell this story and tell people the essential meaning of it was stay woke, right? You have to remain awake. You know, during that time, white people hadn't figured out the phrase woke yet. So he would tell the students, like, the most important thing that you have to do is to recognize the circumstances that Black people are in and to always be cognizant of that, what we would call wokeness. And he would start out, it's funny, by talking about 1619. You know, everything that Black people are going through started during 1619. He would talk about the need for, like, the bootstrap philosophy, he would call it, and the need to dismiss it and to understand that if we are going to get any place in society, it's going to have to be with the help of the government. He later in his career, he began talking about reparations using this speech. So it is the thing that, like, the society as a whole dislikes now. But Martin Luther King was an advocate for all of that DEI, wokeness, critical race theory, 1619, like all of that stuff he was talking about 50 and 60 years ago.
In fact, this is actually, one of the things that he said is, go to my iPad, he said, there are all too many people who, in some great period of social change, failed to achieve the new mental outlook that the new situation demands. This is the 1965 Oberlin College speech. He says, there's nothing more tragic than to sleep through a revolution. There can be no gainsaying of the fact that a great revolution is taking place in our world today. It is a social revolution sweeping away the old order of colonialism. In our own nation, it is sweeping away the old order of slavery and racial segregation. The wind of change is blowing, and we see in our day and our age a significant development. Victor Hugo said on one occasion that there is nothing more powerful in all the world than an idea whose time has come. In a real sense, the idea whose time has come today is the idea of freedom and human dignity. Wherever men are assembled today, the cry is always the same. We want to be free. And so we see in our own world a revolution of rising expectations. The great challenge facing every individual graduating today is to remain awake through this social revolution. And so to your point, he's walking through these things and he's challenging folks' conventional wisdom. But he's also saying to folks is, you might have your college degree, but your ass can't be complacent.
Right. That's exactly what he was saying. There was this part in the speech where he says, like, your excellence is not going to be enough. You have to essentially that phrase we all know, work twice as hard to get half as far. And you have to know this, again, because you have to be awake. And what's interesting is that, like, he gave it in Indianapolis. And when he gave it in Indianapolis, before he arrived to give his speech, they stopped him at the airport and they asked him, who was responsible for most of this racial problems that America has? And he said, well, it's the executive department of the federal government. J. Edgar Hoover was so mad that he went through all of his DOJ lawyers' private papers and found the ones who had NAACP members and pressured them to drop their NAACP membership. One refused, Derek Bell, the guy, and so he quit. And that's the guy who created what we now know as critical race theory. So, like, all of this stuff that we're talking about today, they were talking about back then. And it's now that they've made King this cuddly, superhero / teddy bear, that they want to separate him and the man from the things that he believed and the things that he was fighting for. And that's why this is important.
This is the piece right here from a local radio station. What's sad is, it is unbelievable this is the case. It says King's 1959 speech at the Fall Creek YMCA, this is in Indianapolis, was titled Remaining Awake Through Revolution. There are no known recordings of King's address, but local papers provided extensive coverage.
Yep. And that's the address where, that sparked the whole thing with Derek Bell. And there are quotes from that. Like one, he said that segregation is just slavery in new clothes. And that was reported in the newspapers. And again, right, like, the idea that King was, we've heard before, like, I'm more Malcolm than Martin. And that's because those people who say that have accepted the whitewashed version of King as if he wasn't a revolutionary, right? They changed nonviolent resistance to just nonviolence and left out the resistance part and forget that this was one of the greatest revolutionaries in American history.
Yeah, and that is what is so that is what is so frustrating. But the point that I keep making is that Black folks have got to stop doing that as well. We've got to stop minimizing. And listen, I have done MLK speeches all around this country for the last 2 decades. And Michael, it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy when I'm sitting there and it's a Black organization and it's a nearly all Black audience. And I'm like, here we go. All right, here we go. We're gonna play I Have a Dream. We're not gonna play the tough stuff. We're gonna play little boys and little girls, we're gonna play the part that's gonna make RG3 real comfortable. Then we're gonna sit here and we're gonna, then we're gonna sit here and we're gonna do the mountaintop. We might hear a drum major for justice. We might hear that. But basically, we could sit here and say, you're going to hear 4, max 5 different MLK speeches. That's it. You ain't gonna never hear somebody play, I'm Black, I'm proud, I'm beautiful. You ain't gonna never hear that one. You ain't gonna never hear, and you're not gonna hear him call out, like, for instance, when he went to Chicago in 1966, and this is in the book Fire on the Prairie, he said, if we could convince the Chicago Negro to stand with us, we could convince every Negro in America. He specifically called out the Negroes in Chicago who were more than willing to be on the plantation of Mayor Daley than stand up for Black people. And that includes that Reverend Jackson at that church in Chicago. And you got this little conservative Negro running around, Chio Jackson, Jabal, what the hell his name is, now trying to do a reinterpretation, saying King was under the influence of communists and he really wasn't a Christian. And now you got these dumbass Black folks now repeating this stuff, said, oh, he didn't believe in the Trinity, he didn't believe in Mary. And these people just stuck on stupid. But again, They want to not only reduce him to a cuddly teddy bear, they also want to redefine him. This is what Charlie Kirk was all about and Turning Point USA, because they do not want another generation of white folks to truly know what this man was about and who he was fighting.
Right. Like, and the other thing is, right, like they have this whole idea of King that's based in like these politics of respectability, right? Like they forget, like when you were talking about King in Chicago, who was he living in? He went to the gangs in Chicago and had them meet with each other because he wasn't about respectability politics. But, you know, Shirley Eiffel said one thing, told a story one thing, and she says, well, what the marginalization, what this attack on King is about and this attack on civil rights is about is that they have always been jealous that our story is a story of nobility and revolutionary that they have never been able to attain, right? They have to bring down King because they have no equivalent person on their side who was that willing to fight for truth and justice for everybody. They don't have, there is not a white equivalent to Dr. King. And so to even make him realistic, they have to besmirch his name because they can't even raise up someone to his level. They'll never be able to do it. And so it's the idea that they want to have a story, and their story can never match our story. You know, when we talk about fascism and this authoritarian government that we're seeing now, right? One of the things that I always point out is, you know how they always bring up these analogies of Hitler and fascism in Italy, when black people in America are the only people in the world to defeat a fascist regime without an army, without a military, and without violence. And so they want to destroy that story. They want to give an alternative fact, make it an alternative fact. And this is the way that they do it, by whitewashing some of our stories and by demonizing some of our heroes.
Well, absolutely. And I think what our responsibility, again, as African Americans, and I played Bomani Jones's commentary on this yesterday, this is where we must be controlling the narrative, controlling our own story. This is where this is one of the reasons why we don't take off on King Day, because we know damn well mainstream white media is not going to cover all the stuff that happens, and and so our whole deal is like, no, we're going to tell that story, and so this is a moment. Look, this idiot's going to be there for the next 3 years. We see what he stands for and he believes, and this is where you saw the reaction in Florida when black folks said, hey, we're going to start teaching our own. We got no choice. If we're sitting here and rightfully fighting the banning of books and the things along those lines, what we should be doing is saying, hey, we're going to encouraging folks to buy those books, expanding black reading clubs, saying to young folks and others that this is what we're doing. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and say this here. Black folks, every time I turn around, they have all these gift bags and all these events. Guess what? Start filling those gift bags with black books that also laying our history out. I would love to see one of these organizations say, hey, when you leave here, you're going to get a copy of MLK's book, Chaos or Community, or your book, Black AF, my book, White Fear, whatever, because this is what has to happen, because these folks, we know what their game plan is. They want to eradicate black people. They want to eradicate black history. They don't want to hear black authors. They don't want you reading Toni Morrison, Nikki Giovanni. They don't want you reading nobody. And that's their whole game plan.
Right. And the other thing about it is they know that they can't, right? Like the reason we're sitting here talking is because they haven't been able to erase Martin Luther King's true legacy, right? Like all of the stuff that they're pushing about CRT and, fake history and, the National Museum of African American History and Culture is too radical. And people are still going to the NMA, to the Blacksonian. People are still, like, my book over the past year has been the most popular history book, not Black history book in America. They can't stop us. And this is the futile effort that they're putting forward to put forth their agenda, because they know it contradicts what we have made America. The thing that America is, the thing that they love about America is the stuff that we made it. It is an economic powerhouse because our labor made it an economic powerhouse. It is a bastion for truth and justice that they claim, even though they've never afforded it to us, because of what we made it. Like, the reason they get to call it a democracy is because of the stuff that Black people did. And now that they get to bask in all of that glory and be the envy of the world, they want to destroy the legacy and make it look as if they did it. They're returning to colonialism, trying to take countries and invade other sovereign nations and depose presidents, because this is what they do. And the only thing that has ever stopped them is us. And that's what they're trying to erase, that story.
Well, and that point there, to close it out, what also drives them crazy is that that movement has been exported. That movement, I say all the time, during the Arab Spring, when you saw dudes in Egypt and other countries literally having "I am a man" signs, which of course popularized from Memphis, the sanitation workers. Andrew Young always says, when I talk to him, he said, Dr. King is not dead. He physically is not here. He said, but every single day, somewhere in the world, he said, somebody is talking about him, talking about his message or playing his speeches. And he said, that's what we have to remember. And so, again, this is where we have to call upon our people to elevate, because, again, I keep saying, I don't want to see another Black person go, all I know is the little bits from two different speeches. No, we got to go much deeper and broader when it comes to what he had to say. And so, folk, go to my iPad at least. So y'all check out, y'all. I got it. Guys, this is it right here. I know what I'm doing. Go to it, please. Thank you. This is Contraband Camp. Okay, contrabandcamp.com. This is the article. You see it right here, Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. Check out this piece by Michael Harriot. You will see it right here on the website. Article is going to come up. And so definitely check it out, folks. Again, and support Contraband Camp because real work is being done, and that's absolutely necessary. And after you do that, actually go and listen to that speech. Go to Google. It's all there because it was the last sermon that he gave before the April 3rd, 68 speech, before he was assassinated. So y'all be sure to check it out. Michael, thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I'm bringing my panel right now. Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former Senior Advisor for Environmental Justice at the EPA out of D.C. Dr. Melva Wallace, President, CEO, Houston-Tillotson University out of Austin. Joe Richardson, Civil Rights Attorney out of L.A. Mustafa, I'm going to start with you. This is the thing that I'm telling you. It just absolutely... It really does drive me crazy. I've done way too many MLK Black History Month events, and I will tell that audience, can y'all please stop playing just the same two portions of the same damn speech?
Well, that's the part that's palatable, right? That's the part that most folks feel comfortable in, inviting into their space. When you start to talk about somebody who is radical or revolutionary or someone who embraced reparations, for some folks that becomes an uncomfortable conversation. And we have to learn to continue to grow and expand and understand that there was so much more to Dr. King. Economic justice is an issue that I worked on for years. Economic justice is civil rights. Dr. King, of course, in the latter part of his career, people began to focus. His message was in that space as well. What I loved about Dr. King is that he made sure that we understand that love is important, but love is not soft, that justice is not passive, and that democracy only survives if we practice it every day and if we do it together. Part of Dr. King's strength was that he loved Black people. He wanted to make sure that Black people were in a better space, but he also understood that there were other individuals who were also being impacted, and he didn't exclude them. But at the same time, he made sure he kept his focus on our community, who would continue to carry the burdens in this country for hundreds of years. So we have to make sure that we are sharing the real narrative, especially in a time when there's so misinformation and disinformation that continues, as Michael said, to water down or to whitewash our history. We've got to make sure that we're telling the correct story, the full story, and the story that helps us to continue to grow.
Let's go to my iPad. Melville, this is the thing here. So the King Institute at Stanford University, they put out 7 volumes called the King Papers. It's called the Papers of Martin Luther King Jr. The goal is to do 14 volumes. And so if you go to their site, so far they have 7. Matter of fact, I was just sitting here texting Claiborne Carson, who leads it, saying, hey, when do we get the next one? And so this provides the level of depth that we need to understand that this man goes far beyond just a couple of words. There's another book called King. We dropped the interview. Folks should go to our YouTube channel. It's called King of the North. And it talked about the role that he played about what's happening in the North as well, also the West. So King wasn't defined just to the South.
Yeah, and so the challenge is believing that, that's anything. We have to begin to understand that people are more than what we see the media tell us that they are, right? And so whose fault is it that we don't know more about this great man? It's our fault. It's our community's fault. We have to do a better job, especially, educators and people that do that. If we reduce a legacy to 2 speeches, then that's our fault. As a people, that's our fault. So we have to do a better job of communicating in learning how to learn who people are. That means reading more about who he was, reading more about his family, understanding the kind of person that he was. And that's teaching our young people how to think and how to think critically about what is being presented. Because yes, Martin Luther King, an incredible human, but how do we still deal nowadays with who people tell us they are in the media? And so we have to begin to critically think along the way and research the people who we want to know more about. And our HBCUs do it well, our schools do it well. But you brought up a great point about the books. It's learning more about your community. And, it's how to learn is what we have to do. And that's where we might have missed the mark, is reducing this man to 2 speeches.
Joe, also what has to happen, and I'm just a firm believer in this, that we have to expand this beyond just him. When I look at my library, when I look at the things that I study, when I look at the things that I read, there were so many people who played a pivotal role, known and unknown. And so I keep saying his holiday is not about him. It's do with it what he did when he got the Nobel Peace Prize, accepting it on behalf of the whole movement. We need to be, again, expanding our knowledge. I tell the story when I was reading, and I know my next guest probably has read this book. It was the book Showdown on the Thurgood Marshall confirmation hearings by Will Haygood. And in there, he talked about Henry and Harriet Moore and the work they were doing in Florida. And their home was firebombed on Christmas Day, and they died of their injuries. And he said there was a museum dedicated to them on those grounds in Sanford, Florida. I was like, what? And I said, man, I had no idea. And I spent time down there, obviously, because of the Trayvon Martin case. And so I remember when we did our show on Bethune-Cookman College, and I was driving actually I think I was driving to Orlando for something. I was driving to Fort Lauderdale. I was driving to Fort Lauderdale for something. And I'm on the highway, and I see the Henry Moore Museum. And I immediately turned around and went back, and it was closed. But I shot some video, did some things along those lines. And that's the thing. So their story is just as important as Dr. King, is just as important as Medgar Evers. So we got to be making sure our folk have a much broader understanding of our history.
And one of the things that's important about that is that's going to give us encouragement, and that's going to give us confidence. A lot of what we hear now are the frustrations that many of us naturally have with what we see going on right now. But this is still nothing compared to what they dealt with 50, 100 years ago, 35, 40 years ago. And to really be able to dig into that, Roland, now you're going to understand how much history, how much work has to be done to actually erase our history. But it's a race for us to make sure that we're continuing to preserve and uncover it. So not only for those that we know, the Ida B. Wells Barnett and the Sojourner Truth and the Harriet Tubman, but and the Thurgood Marshalls, but the other lawyers that were part of the movement, the other people that worked in the labor movement, the other folks that integrated lunch counters, etc. Because what happens is we can be encouraged and we can be uplifted by the fact that there were so many of them. And that's why it had as much success as it did. The civil rights movement was incredibly disciplined. Martin always talked about how he took things from the gentleman that he took a lot of things from was connected to Gandhi, at least in terms of studying and those types of things. There's so much out there to be taken and to be replicated and also to be encouraged by. And right now, that's going to allow us, without minimizing what we might be seeing right now, the perspective that we need to know that if they could handle it and keep going. Some of our previous generations, I said this in church the other day, some of our previous generations said, even if not for me, then for them. They hoped for things for us that they had no belief necessarily that they would see themselves or for themselves to enjoy. And so if we look at that, and listen, woke is Bible, okay? Romans 13:11, Ephesians 5:14, woke is Bible, okay? And Martin was Bible, and he was radical, all of the above. So let's embrace it, learn as much as we can about it, him and others, so that it can strengthen us going forward.
And at least go to my iPad. I must have offloaded the videos, but luckily I had. So it's called the Harriet T. and the Harriet V. Moore Memorial Park in Brevard County. And then this is actually the museum. It sits on the site where their home was firebombed by racists there in Florida. And again, they were doing the work out there fighting on behalf of voting rights. And so just one of the things that we need to understand. Our history is there. All right, folks, check out that article by Michael Harriot, In Contraband Camp. All right, let's talk to my next guest. He is talking about someone who understands history, hailing from Alabama, was the prosecutor in the case. The book is called Bending Towards Justice, the Birmingham Church Bombing That Changed the Course of Civil Rights, U.S. Senator Doug Jones. Now, remember, we did the interview. Y'all, he was crazy. We thought the interview was lost. No, actually, when we did the interview, it was not labeled. So when I was looking for the Richard Smallwood interview, Richard Smallwood, of course, who passed away, I actually found the Doug Jones interview first, and then I found the Richard Smallwood interview right after that. And so this week, we're going to be running the interview I did with Doug Jones in our first studio about that particular book. It's a conversation y'all don't want to miss. But he joins us right now, not to talk about his book, but to talk about running for governor of Alabama. He announced that he is running. You have Senator Tommy Tuberville. I have no problem saying it. It's truly one of the dumbest people I've ever seen in my life in the United States Senate. He's running for governor, an absolute embarrassment. And so pull it up. These are the four folks who are also running. Doug Jones, Will Boyd, Jamel Brown, and Chad Martin, those who have announced. Doug, the thing here, here's what I find to be very interesting. Tommy Tuberville, people are like, oh, hey, he's pretty much guaranteed to win. And I get he was a coach at Auburn, but for the life of me, I'm like, surely Alabama, you cannot put that man in the governor's mansion. And when I say somebody ain't talking about, I've just never seen somebody who says the stuff that he says, and you just go, I know there has to be something in that head.
Roland, look, first of all, my friend, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me on again. It's been a while. I really appreciate it. And, look, I think Alabama today is a lot different Alabama than it was a few years ago when he got elected in a Trump election year, in which he hid behind COVID. They hid him away. He hid in his home in Florida, which I think he still lives in, by the way. I still don't think he's a resident of Alabama, but that's a whole different story. And the fact of the matter is they can't hide him this time. He's got a record. He's going to have to get out there. He's going to have to defend a record that I think is indefensible. He's not done anything for the people of Alabama. He's not just been a Trump acolyte. He's been a trumpeter for Donald Trump and everything he's done. Every divisive concept that he's got, Tommy Tuberville has been right there. So we are going to use this election and talk to people and listen to people and understand that folks in Alabama are hurting. Just like everywhere else in the country, and they need their health care, they need their education, they need to have good jobs and good paying jobs. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're not going to be talking about how to divide people the way that Tommy Tuberville does. We're going to talk about bringing people together the way you and I have talked before, the way I think I've conducted myself in the Senate and since I've left the Senate.
There, I mean, perfect example. This guy was going on and on and on about how people have stolen and these folk who are getting welfare, all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, do you understand the amount of federal benefits, especially with health care, that come to Alabama? I mean, he was sitting here thought he was trashing undocumented workers. He was trashing folks in Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely correct. We're one of the poorest states in the country. We have a lot of people on Medicaid. We have a lot of people on SNAP, and they're hardworking people. It's not just folks that don't have jobs and not looking for jobs. There are so many people on Medicaid right now that have jobs. They just can't afford to do anything else, and we've got a real restrictive Medicaid, and they're losing what health care that they have. The people that can afford it are about to lose a lot more. Folks on SNAP were really hurting. You know, he attacked folks on SNAP. And we've got one of the highest we've got one of the highest populations of active duty military that are also on SNAP. And he was attacking those folks as well. He does talking points, Roland. He doesn't do his homework. He doesn't know the facts. He sure as hell doesn't know history. And he just does the talking points that he sees coming out of the White House. And they don't always apply here in Alabama. And we're going to make sure folks know that and understand who he is now, because I don't think they fully understood or appreciated it in 2020 when he got elected to the U.S. Senate.
Y'all have faced each other. I keep this here on my iPad, and this is, and y'all, this, I don't need everybody to understand, this actually happened. This was October 2020. I need y'all to understand, this is literally Tommy Tuberville, who currently is a United States Senator from Alabama, talking about voting rights from the place that is the cradle of civil rights. When we talk about voting rights in America for black folks, we're talking Selma, we're talking Montgomery, we're talking Birmingham, we're talking Mobile, we're talking about Alabama, and this is Tommy Tuberville, y'all. This was from almost six years ago. Listen.
The thing about the Voting Rights Act is, it's, you know, there's a lot of different things you can look at it as. You know, who's it going to help? You know, what direction do we need to go with it? I think it's important that with everything we do, we keep secure. We keep an eye on it. It's run by our government, and it's run to the point that it's got structure to it. It's like education. I mean, it's got to have structure. Now, for some reason, we look at things to change, to think we're going to make it better, but we'd better do a lot of work on it before we make that change. The thing about the Voting Rights Act is...
Clearly, education didn't take hold for somebody.
Clearly, if there is one person in the entire Congress that does not need to abolish the Department of Education, it is Senator Tuberville. And that's right. I've still got that on my phone as well, Roland. It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And remember, just a month after that, he didn't know what the three branches of government were right after he got elected. I mean, look, what's really, I think, for us, we are going to focus on exactly what got me elected in 2017. And that's a focus on kitchen table issues. People's health care is still a big deal in Alabama with all of the people that are uninsured and underinsured. Education is still a point. And we've got to work on our workforce development. I know the governor and others currently are trying to do some things with workforce development, but we got to do more. Alabama's workforce, we have the lowest participation rate in our workforce as any state in the country, save Mississippi and West Virginia. When you get more people in the workforce, you bring up the economy. And those rural areas that need that economy, we got to get those folks working. We got to get rural hospitals back open. And those are the kind of things we're going to be talking about while he's running around trying to figure out what the Voting Rights Act is.
Before I go to my panel for questions, this is just the most difficult thing. How do you get through to people who are hardcore Republicans, who vote R regardless, who love Donald Trump and will do whatever this man says? How do you convince them to stop voting against their interest? How? How do you get the Democrats in the state to really organize and mobilize and maximize black turnout, not just in the primary, but also in the general election? Because, this is like you have to damn near run, you or the other candidates running for the Democratic nomination for governor have to damn near run an almost perfect campaign to win, because that's how red and Republican and conservative Alabama is.
Well, Roland, let's go through a couple of things for you. First of all, we're red by the numbers of winning and losing. I get that. But if you drill down on the numbers a little bit, there's a lot of folks that have voted Democrat in this state before, and they're going to vote that way again. We won in 2017. Nobody thought we could do it. We won. You've got numbers. I got more votes than any Democrat in history got in a losing campaign in 2020, and we're going to go back. We believe we can identify those folks, and we're going to be working at a precinct by precinct level to try to get those votes back out. Second thing we're going to be doing, we're going to be working with other candidates. In Alabama, Democrats have been so fractured over the years, especially in the last 20 or 30 years. They haven't run together. They haven't talked to each other. They've run separate campaigns. We got folks now who are energized and excited to build an entire ticket. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to be going after voters that are low propensity voters. We're going to be going after the voters that we believe persuadable, those hardcore Republican voters that look, it's their prerogative to vote hardcore Republican. I don't think there are as many as people think. And one of the problems that we've got, and we're going to try to address this as best we can, one of the problems is Alabama is one of only 5 states left that allow straight ticket voting. That means you check one box, you vote for everybody in that party. I don't like that system. I've never liked that system. We're going to start going after that system. It is a rigged system. That is exactly what this is. The folks in Montgomery, Alabama, the state capital, and all the big mules down there, they want to keep that system rigged so that they can control who the candidates are. To show you an example of that and how bad it is down here, special interest groups in Alabama over the last 6 months have started endorsing candidates. Now, you may not think that that's a problem, but the fact of the matter is we didn't even start qualifying candidates to run in each party until about 2 weeks ago. They've been endorsing candidates to try to intimidate people to control the candidates and therefore rig the election. So we're going to try to break the cycle of straight ticket voting. I think a bill's going to probably get introduced. It won't pass, but we're going to lay down a marker right now and educate people about that. Well, and the second thing, and the last thing we're going to do real quick, we are going to go into those areas. I am not going to be afraid to go in and talk to those folks in rural areas and the folks that have traditionally voted Republican. I think more people are conditioned to vote that way, that they're supposed to vote that way, And once they start seeing the choices that they've got this year, they're going to have second thoughts.
Well, it's interesting you say this about straight ticket voting, because the Republicans in Texas got rid of straight ticket voting because they were so mad that Democrats were winning Harris County, Dallas County, Bexar County, Travis County, and they was like, no, we got to get rid of this. All right, questions from my panel. Joe, you first for Doug Jones.
Senator Jones, it's an honor to be on with you. Thank you for helping us bend toward justice. You have absolutely done your part. Between what you've said and what Roland has asked, you guys kind of took up what I was going to ask. But let me ask you this, Senator. What do you hope in this campaign to reveal to Alabama about itself? So that they can rise up, find their identity, grab it, and say, we need to go in another direction.
Beautiful question, Joe, and it is so appropriate for the way we're framing this entire campaign. You know, Alabama, despite its history of divisiveness, Alabama is a community. Alabama, folks take care of each other in times of need, whether it's a tragedy, whether it's the loss of a loved one. We're really more cohesive than people think when it gets right down to it, but we've let politicians and others divide us. And so our theme, one of the themes, there's a song, and it's a song by a group of women called the High Women, and it's called Crowded Table. And I use that in my kickoff. I'm using it in every speech. I mean, just quoting it. We can't use the whole song, hoping to get to. But for folks that are listening, it's an amazing, it's an anthem of unity and community. And it's basically, I want a house with a crowded table, where there's a place by the fire for everyone, where we can take on the world while we're young and able and come back together when the day is done. The door's always open. Your picture's on my wall. Everyone's a little broken, but everyone belongs. That's what we're going to get Alabama to recognize about itself and our community and all the glory that we have in the diversity. We are going to continue that theme regardless of how the other side attacks African Americans or Muslims or whoever they might try to divide. We're going to want that house with a crowded table.
Melva?
Thank you, sir.
Melva?
Yeah, okay. So let's just be real. You got an uphill battle. And in 2017, your Senate win was known, I think it was called something like the Alabama Miracle, right? which is really good. How and Black voters, particularly Black women, here we are again, Black women trying to save the world. We were crucial to your past statewide success. And from what I'm seeing, we are key to any Democratic ground game in 2026. What's your play? What's your plan to get Black women behind you again?
You know, I think we've got to remind folks of my role in the U.S. Senate. I think that we've got to remind them of how excited they were when they finally had a voice in the United States Senate. They damn sure don't have one up there now. And we got to remind folks about that. We got to remind folks of my record and my history of helping folks. And it's not just the church bombing. I love it when people remind everyone about what we did to bring justice for those 4 little girls that were killed in that bombing in 1963. But I want to remind people that we were the ones, that I was the one co-sponsoring legislation that got permanent funding for HBCUs, that got increased funding for HBCUs. We were the ones sponsoring legislation for maternal health care initiatives, because we in Alabama have one of the highest rates of maternal mortality and infant mortality in the country. And those rates are higher for Black women and people and women of color. So we're going to remind folks about what we've done. And significantly, as Tommy Tuberville is going on at attacking various demographics, various folks in our community, whether it is Muslims or others, I want to remind folks, I want to remind them that in 2020, after the George Floyd murder, and I was going to be in a tough race in Alabama, that it was this son of the South that got on the floor of the Senate and talked about Black Lives Matter, and trying to reform some criminal justice things. And we ran TV ads that way. I want people to know and understand that they will have a voice in the governor's mansion, because they have not had one in a long, long time now. And we needed that voice, just like they put me in the Senate for at least 3 years. Let's put me in the governor's mansion for 4 years so they'll have that bully pulpit in their corner.
Mustafa.
Jones, it's good to see you again. I've spent a whole lot of time in Alabama working on environmental and public health issues over the years. You can correct my numbers here if I say them incorrectly, but I think Alabama's about 16%, has a poverty rate of about 16%. For the Black community, I believe it's about 25%. And if we go down to some of the places that I've spent a lot of time, like in Perry County, you may have 60% of, young people, children, who are dealing with poverty. So I'm going to give you two different ways to answer this. You can either talk about how Alabama has gotten to this positioning with poverty, or what is your vision for folks in Perry County and in other places to be able to move forward?
It's a complicated questions, and you can talk about both of them. We've got to this point because the state of Alabama has not invested in those counties. They've neglected them. Everybody talks about how great Birmingham does, how great Huntsville does, Mobile, but they forget the Perry counties of the world, and they don't invest. They haven't invested in education in those counties. They haven't invested in the workforce development in those counties. And they haven't invested, importantly, they have not invested in small businesses in those counties. We've had a state government that loves to give out tax incentives to the big companies to come in because they're real proud of all these companies coming in. And I'm fine with that. I mean, I like to do that. But I want to give some of these incentives to the small businesses, like in Perry County, where folks can operate and open and operate a business right there in their hometown, because they'll be more apt to stay there in that hometown and employ people in that hometown. So I think we can do a lot like that, but we've got to do something to lift the wages across the board, and we've got to get healthy. That is one thing, and I'm not talking about the stuff we see coming out of the HHS secretary. I'm talking about basic health care in these rural areas where our rural hospitals are closing. We didn't expand Medicaid. We need to do that. We need to keep these rural hospitals open and maybe kind of rethink how healthcare is being delivered in those rural hospitals. We're not going to forget those counties. And I think more investment in those counties in both education and workforce development and incentives for small businesses are key.
Absolutely. All right. Doug Jones, we appreciate it. We'll be covering this. When is the primary?
Primary is May the 19th. I'm not taking any primary for granted. I want to make sure people understand that. We're not taking any of that for granted. We're going to be talking about these issues. We're going to be going to folks. We're going to be listening. We're going to do a lot of listening tour type things. And if anybody's out there that has questions or can help us, go to DougJones.com, and there you got them all right now. That's the new campaign sites that we've got there. So we'd love to have you join us if you're in Alabama, and if not, just send us some money.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland. Take care.
All right. Going to go to a quick break. We come back. We're going to talk about a new UNCF report. They're dealing with HBCU leadership. We'll also be talking about the drama at Morris Brown. You fired president last week. You reinstate him this week. Absolutely crazy. Plus, Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do the kind of work that we're doing. If you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Use it for credit cards as well. Checks and money order and make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. America is being reshaped in real time by a group of 6 people, unelected and without any checks and balances. By the end of the current Supreme Court session, education, the workplace, who gets to elect our leaders, and so much more could radically change. This week, we reconvene our legal roundtable and look at what the new America may look like and how we should respond. That's next on The Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We truly have an idiot in the White House. Today, Donald Trump gave a news conference, and another racist diatribe against Somali Americans. Y'all, this is what's crazy. This is insane. This is insane what this man had to say. And it goes to show you, again, how all he wants is... First of all, why am I hearing the clicking, y'all? This man only wants white people in this country. He only wants white people in this country. This was supposed to be, my congressman's news conference. It wasn't. Listen to this.
$1 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money. They never had a life. They never had a government. They never had a country, because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich and they don't have a job. I was told that Ilhan Omar is worth $30 million. She never had a job. She's a crooked congressman. So here is another one. And I have, oh, by the way, we just took out, these are all what ICE is doing.
Absolute racist. That's who he is. There's no other way to explain this, Mustafa.
Well, it is all that you just said. It is also the fear. So, I know he's never spent any time in the Somalian community. If he did, he would understand that they have incredibly high business ownership because they believe in collective economics, family members coming together, as other immigrant communities have done and continue to do, and build businesses. They've helped revitalize these corridors that were dying before. He's also probably afraid of the fact that when it comes to education, many Somalians end up going on to be doctors and lawyers because the families place such a high level of importance on being able to achieve educationally as well, and then to be able to give back. So these are things that he fears, because when folks do that, they build power. They build a better understanding of how they can help to not only contribute, but also help to push this country to be better. And these are things that he has no interest in. So, he continues to create these false narratives about the community, as he has done with other communities. And unfortunately, because most people in this country either one, don't read, or two, never spend time with people who may look different than them, they have no idea about, just this greatness that actually exists inside of this representative community.
Joe?
Yeah, in an irony and consistent with what Mustafa is saying, you'll find that our Somalian brothers and sisters are some of the most disciplined folk out there. Frankly, I believe they're a little less likely to be undocumented, etc. They really have their stuff together. They go for it. They make the communities that they're part of better. They're law-abiding. They do it right. And so just because they've got the wrong shade, I guess, Donald Trump is not too crazy about them. But that being said, I believe they set a wonderful example of an immigrant community that is about their community, becomes part of their community. Maybe we need to go no further than the fact that the Somali brothers and sisters are doing it pretty good in a very cold climate up there in Minnesota, because a whole lot of us wouldn't be trying to roll up there, even though my wife's from Minnesota. But they do a wonderful thing. They do wonderful work, and they're wonderful people. I think that the more that we understand that what is behind what Donald Trump is trying to do is fear, being outnumbered, 2043, as we've talked about a million times, the fact that statistically speaking, white folks are dying out, and therefore it will be just like it is already in most parts of the world, where we are majority minority in the rest of the world. You're not fearful. You have to lean into that because it's going to happen regardless of whether you want it to happen or not. And so we have to just keep moving forward and support all of our immigrant communities that are adding to us and making us better and making America what it actually is, as it has been from the very beginning.
Melva?
Yeah, I think that, the opportunity is for us to think about community in a way that is different. It's hard to not like somebody when you get to know them. And so we have to be bigger than the message and the messenger. And for us as a people, it's an opportunity to settle down, get to know our neighbors, and support communities, the Somali community, the Black community, the brown community, the Hispanic community that's also being marginalized. I think Black people were probably the only race that didn't really ask to be here in a sense. We were brought here, but others that really want to be in this America and to support this America, it's important that we embrace everybody. And, it's hard to add to what you guys have already said about, foolery going around and us trying to divide communities. But I encourage everybody within the community, get to know your neighbors and don't listen to the foolery.
Absolutely. All right, folks. We've been talking about all across the country, obviously, the redistricting going on. Now, remember, all of this stuff started in Texas. And what happened in Texas is that Donald Trump said, I won 5 seats. Republicans gave it to him. Well, that set off a furious round. California responded by saying, okay, we're going to gerrymander our maps. And then Indiana chose not to. Kansas said they didn't have the votes. And then, of course, you see State Senator Louise Lucas in Virginia. She's pushing for a 10-to-1 map to punish Republicans. Well, guess what? The Maryland Redistricting Advisory Commission, they have voted and sent this recommendation to Governor Wes Moore for an 8-0 map in that particular state. And guess what? That's exactly what should be the case. Bottom line is this here. It's called FAFO. Y'all want to sit here and play games? We're going to respond accordingly. Now, Republicans in Missouri, they gerrymandered out the seat of Congressman Emanuel Cleaver. They also are trying to make Florida, talks about they're going to be trying to make changes. Ohio made their changes as well. And listen, this is the way, again, you want to play games and folks are going to respond, that's what happens. And so what you might find is, Joe, one pickup, because in Maryland right now, it's 7 Democrats, 1 Republican. They're going to wipe that person out. They're going to wipe out 2 or 3 in Virginia. And this is what I've always said. Power, you got power, you use power. Republicans wanted to play games, and this all started, let's be very clear, this all started, now you've always had gerrymandering, okay? And also, as a reminder, Joe, Democrats put forward last year, they voted on a bill to get rid of partisan gerrymandering. Republicans voted against it. So since they wanted to go ahead and go there, Democrats are responding. That's exactly how you're supposed to respond to thugs.
Yeah, I mean, you started it, and we'll finish it. Shout out to my dear friend, new delegate in Virginia, Nicole Cole, who overturned and got rid of a 32-year incumbent. And I know she's voting for what it is that they're doing in Virginia. And so, yeah, they messed around and found out. And, you know, by the way, BTWIJS, even what Donald Trump was contemplating doing in turning around 5 seats in Texas would have totally assumed that they were popular enough for those 5 seats to actually be turned. We don't even know that those 5 seats will be turned. And we don't know, and we're pretty certain that he's not a popular president enough to undo the trend that every president has faced, and that is in a midterm election, after they've been elected, often they lose seats in Congress. There was nothing going on to indicate he's not super popular or any of those things. He's super divisive, actually. He is, anybody know what happened with the stock market today? If you want to buy low, you can do it. Okay, so there's a lot of things that are going on that don't even speak to the popularity that he would need to actually pull this off. And so they did mess around and find out. And so kudos to everybody that's pushing and doing the things that they need to do so that maybe we can get a 20-vote majority this time and really start to rein in this president. This is what you have to do. And whether, you know, you do it the easy way or do it the hard way, we can do it the hard way. And I would also briefly add that the comparison between partisan gerrymandering for Democrats and partisan gerrymandering for Republicans is no comparison. That's why the Democrats were willing to get rid of partisan gerrymandering. That alone lets you know that there's no comparison. So you want to FAFO? Here we is.
Bottom line here, Melva, should there be partisan gerrymandering? No. But guess what? What you don't do is you don't tie your hand behind your back and put on a straitjacket and duct tape. Republicans have made it clear what it is that they are going to do when it comes to seizing power, and you must respond accordingly. Oh, you on mute? There we go. Okay, now we got you.
Here we go. Okay, I want to take 2 steps back. I think what's important is for people, I'm not sure, I think the message is being missed from people who are not paying attention to this and who are thinking, oh, something's going on and they're missing the whole thing. Let's just give a 101 on this. Redistricting shapes which communities are heard, which ones are ignored, and how resources are allocated. Now, this is, I mean, it's imperative that we're paying attention to this because this determines schools, infrastructure, healthcare, workforce opportunities, all of the above. And it's not about just lines on a map. It's about representation, opportunity, trust in democracy. All of these things are important. So we have to go back to the basics because you have to realize a lot of people getting their news from the social media, from the Instagram, from the Snapchat, and the TikToks. And it's not there. And I think people are ignoring this a little bit when we should be leaning in because the people who are closest to the impact should be really closest to the process. So I'm just encouraging people to start paying attention because, you know, yes, nationally, but this is also happening within your local communities, and which is important. So we need to be paying attention to this all over. Yeah.
Mustafa?
I mean, everything Dr. Wallace and Joe said, all of that just kind of lays it out for folks. You know, I had the chance to actually work with Emmanuel Cleaver when I worked on Capitol Hill and saw how important his voice was in a process. So as we begin to lose those voices, even though, down the road, we may be able to, reshape maps and get people back or get people who have similar ideas back, there's still that period of time when folks no longer have those champions for important issues for our community. So we just have to stay mindful of that. And as you started out, everybody wants to make sure there are fair maps. The Republicans have a problem because they continue to create policy that is destructive and that doesn't uplift people. And if they created better policy, then maybe they'd be more competitive and wouldn't have to do these types of, just really negative things. So I'm still hopeful that one day that we'll get to a place where folks will be fair. But until that day, you got to do what you got to do to make sure that you're protecting your people.
Absolutely. All right, quick break. We come back. Let's talk about the UNCF's new report dealing with HBCU leadership. That's next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook, that's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network. On a next, A Balanced
Week on the Other Side of Change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, and higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
All right, folks, United Negro College Fund has released a report that examines presidential tenure at HBCUs. titled Stable Leadership, the Foundation of HBCU Success. The report from the UNCF's Institute for Capacity Building explores the importance of presidential leadership at HBCUs, highlighting that it is a critical issue beyond just staff concerns. To ensure that institutions remain on the right path, it's also essential to sustain leaders. Joining me now is Dr. Walter Kimbrough, Executive Vice President for Research and Member Engagement at the UNCF. Aja Johnson, Senior Program Manager for Executive Leadership at the UNCF Institute for Capacity Building, joins me from Atlanta. Glad to have y'all here. Walter, I'll start with you. Look, you've been president of HBCUs, worked at several as well. And so you've seen this thing front and center. And the bottom line is this here. We are seeing a drop. We're seeing a drop in terms of, the amount of years that they're spending at HBCUs. It's a huge, huge problem. And we got to be honest. This is coming from Board of Trustees. And I've been to too many HBCUs, 107. I've been to 59 of them. I've talked to way too many presidents. And it's like the same thing. It's like Groundhog Day.
Right. Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us here today. I was excited when I joined UNCF in September that they had started doing this work, and Asia would be able to talk about the background with it, because I remember in 2014, I went to a UNCF meeting, and we have a board book, and it lists you, it ranks you, and Melvin knows about this as well. And you sort of see, who's been there the longest and that kind of thing. And at this meeting, we have 37 members, 8 had either acting or interim. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's over 20%. Why do we have so much? So I started getting interested 12 years ago, and we continue to see that. Initially, I kept thinking like, well, what are the kinds of things we need to do to prepare people to be presidents? But then later on, you start to look to say, it's some other things happening, which is why we're saying we need to focus on the governance part, because it's not just preparation of people. If your governance is not good, no matter how well you're prepared, if you get into some kind of cesspool, you're going to drown as a president.
No, absolutely, Aja. I remember when Austin Lane was president of Texas Southern University. He gets fired by the board. They try to claim it for cause. He sues. Then when they actually go through it, it wasn't for cause. They then have to negotiate a buyout. He has to get his contract paid out. And literally, once it all was resolved, the following week, he gets hired by PWI. I can tell you, I have had individuals who have told me, people who have worked at HBCUs, they've said, I will never work at a HBCU again because I'm not dealing with that type of bullshit. I remember there was another president at HBCU who was inside of his 90 days. The board doesn't tell him, are you going to renew his contract or not? He takes an interview. He comes back. They fire him by saying, how dare you go interview? He's like, what are you talking about? You violated the contract because you didn't even notify me at the 90-day mark whether I'm going to get renewed or not. And he said, I got a family. What am I supposed to do? That is the craziness that I have personally seen from presidents and boards.
For those of us who have had the HBCU experience, whether it's going to an HBCU, working with an HBCU, we know that boards can be an issue. But what our report shows is like while they are the issue, as well as resources, alignment concerns, there's a roadmap forward. And we do have HBCU boards who have been exemplars. And so our work shows that, yes, we can highlight the problem with turnover and the boards, but there are also some exemplars that we can learn from to build a resource moving forward for the sector.
Walter, when you show me a stable HBCU, I can guarantee you it is a stable board. It is a board that understands its responsibility, fiduciary responsibility, and governance of the president, not trying to run the school. And this is when I'm always concerned. I'm always concerned when an HBCU president gets fired and the interim is a board member. Not somebody on staff, but a board member.
Well, and I think within those presidential circles, people have had those kinds of conversations to say, how do people go from board to leading the institution? And that's not really the best practice. Even in some of the research I've done, people who have longer tenures are people who understand higher education, not someone who doesn't understand that. So one of the things that Asia and I will be working on is we want to look at some best practices to say there are some institutions that have very good boards and we need to replicate that. The example I always use is Xavier University. Norman Francis is a legend. He was there almost 50 years. That probably was the hardest search to do. Reynold Verrett has been there 10 years. So they've had stability. So we want to talk to the Xavier board to say, y'all got something right. How do we replicate what you're doing or what a Wiley College has done with stable leadership? So that's the next part of our work, not just to say there's a problem. We know there's a problem, but we need to help other boards look at like boards that have been successful.
Well, AJ, here's the question here. Presidents meet. Do boards meet? Is there literal board training or where you say, no, we need your whole board to come here so we can walk folks through to that point, best practices? Not the board chair, but the whole board.
That is something that our work at UNCF's Institute for Capacity Building is leaning in on. At our Unite conference last summer, we did have a president and board member and chair pre-summit where we did get them in the room to have these conversations. But as Dr. Kimbrough has mentioned, this is where our work is going, where we can get gatherings of boards, and not just the board chair, but the boards together to talk about governance, development, and all the things that are going to help us move past having this conversation on presidential tenure and how it's lacking at our HBCUs, and really focusing on what are the strategies and the tools to move boards forward.
Walter, when I was in Chicago, the Chicago Theological Seminary tried to recruit me to be on their board. I'm on the 50 Can Education Reform Group board. This is the fourth time on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists. And when I went out for Chicago Theological Seminary, they had a requirement that every board member had a minimum that they had to either contribute or raise 20 grand. Now, remember, I was in Alabama talking to a board chair who said, man, I thought I was doing something. I think the requirement was like $1,000 or $2,500. And I said, no, it needs to be $10,000. I said, if you have somebody who is on your board of directors or your board of trustees and they can't give annually 10 grand or raise 10 grand, they have no business being on your board of trustees.
Right. Yeah, no, the give or get is really important because when you think about trustees, that's a part of their work as well to help raise money. The challenge, though, Roland, is that for private institutions, and Melvin can speak to this, our board of trustees really have to lean in raising money. With state boards, sometimes they're just political appointments, and they're just there. They're not giving a dime. They're just there on the board, and that a lot of times has been problematic for public institutions. But I agree that has to be a part of it, that is not just to say, well, I'm on the board and I get to tell the president what to do. It's like, how am I actively helping to raise money? What doors am I opening for the institution? And I think we have to lean into that. That's a big part of the work, and it's not just something for people to flex to say, I'm on this board.
Right. Well, I'll say this here. If it is a state institution and if you cannot require it, that's where those alumni groups and external groups should be saying no, establish this as a voluntary goal and should be calling folks out. And look, I'm all for literally having a list by saying, and y'all know me, I ain't got a problem. Rolling to a board meeting by saying, trustee so-and-so, you ain't giving a dime in 5 years, so-and-so, so-and-so. And let's just be perfectly clear. There are people who love board perks. There are people who love the tickets and going to stuff and being recognized and all of that. And some folk got to get called out. And for everybody who's watching and listening, and this is the other thing, I'll say this before I go to our panel for questions. I don't want to hear another HBCU person go, you can't say nothing because you go to a PWI. Let me be real clear. If you like my PWI check supporting your institution, then you're going to hear what I got to say. And the point here is, this is about how do you build Black institutions? And the way I look at this, Melva, I'm always talking about Black institutions. I look at Black churches, Black media, Black colleges, Black-owned businesses, and it's all about how do you have proper growth, how do you build capacity, and then when it's time for you to retire, how do you now transition to proper leadership? Of course, Ruth, why is it escaping me right now? Ruth Simmons. One of the things that she did, she came to a UNCF conference. It was in Atlanta. She said, I want to teach these HBCUs how to have proper presidential transition so you don't have this topsy-turvy change when one person leaves and one person comes in. Your thoughts on this report and how much is needed?
Yeah, it is so important. And I think the challenge is for our industry of higher education, especially HBCUs, most people feel like they can do our job because they went to college, right? I mean, because you spent 4, 5, 6 years in your dorm room, seeing your faculty members, being immersed in the HBCU experience. We feel as armchair quarterbacks that we can do the job of the president because we see them stand up, give a couple of speeches, show up at football games and wave, come to the basketball games and take some pictures. That's not what this job is. This is a profession.
Or they believe I worked in corporate America and I can run a school.
I can do this. I can do this. It's not the same. That does not translate. We don't go to IBM. Like, I'm not applying to a job being the CEO of like IBM, it's just not, it does not translate. And I think that's the misnomer because we see it as a very popular opportunity. And it looks easy, but it's not. This is a skill. It is a trade. It is something that you prepare yourself to do. And I want to just give kudos to I have one of those exemplary boards, incredible boards. They give a lot of money. They respect the position. We have had, phenomenal presidents. All of my predecessors have been incredible people. And, it's one of those things where some people get it right and there are some that get it wrong. And there's so much opportunity in the success of our HBCUs that hinges on leadership. And that's where we need to spend our focus.
Before I go to Mustafa and Joe, I'm going to stay with you, Melva, because you and I have known each other for a long time since I spoke at Southern University. Was it Southern University Shreveport? Is that what it was?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Long time ago. And here's a perfect example. There were a number of HBCUs that were trying to recruit you. And you purposely no, that ain't the right. You were very selective on when you said you were going to take an HBCU presidency. Just explain to people why you were that selective.
Yeah, because fit matters. I mean, it's like any career. Fit matters. And HBCUs have their own. I mean, it's not just one type of institution. And you have to be prepared for these jobs. It's not just doing the job and waking up and showing up and getting a nice parking space and getting free food in the cafeteria. That's dope, but that's not all it's about. It's also how do you navigate the area in which you're in. That means you have to get students from where they are to the workforce. You also have to navigate the alumni. So knowing that the type of alumni that you're going to be interfacing with is also key. And also knowing the board and knowing for me where I fit, where I would thrive was imperative. And I encourage everybody that wants to be a college president, especially an HBCU president, maybe this is hazardous duty and you do not get hazardous duty pay. So you have to be prepared for this work because it is up all night and it's a lot to it. It's like running a city within a city.
Walter, you first, then Asia. Go ahead with your...
So the thing I want to say, and I've known Melva a long time as well, one of the things in our report is that we do talk about how we select presidents. And I do know of some boards, so sometimes you load up people on the board that think they know how to do the job, they think they know how to select a president, and they miss. And I know of some examples that missed on Melva because they thought that they knew. And so part of our report says we have to improve how we select presidents, how we support them, and all of that is a part of those board functionings as well. So that's another part of our report that we really lean into because we don't always select well, and that's a part of the overall challenges with governance.
Asia, on that particular point, because I don't want to make this just all about boards, but because leadership also means that when you come in as the president, and this has been one of my criticisms, I personally believe that far too many HBCUs treat their presidents like churches treat senior pastors. I'm not down with calling the president's wife, if he's a man, first lady. Okay, that's the president. That's the wife of the president. And so that's also part of the deal. You got to have folk who recognize that it's not about the pomp and circumstance of the position as well. I know some presidents who got run out for very good reasons because of failed leadership. Folk who were just so happy having this security detail. And here's a perfect example. I've said for years, one of my greatest criticisms of HBCUs is that you have you have public relations departments, communications offices that operate as if their job is to get the president good press and not the university. And I can tell you right now, I'm being very frank, if you see a HBCU professor on this show speaking on subject matter expert, we call them. They didn't call us. Well, we've had this show for 7 years. I can tell you 2, and one of them was you at Dillard.
Robert Collins, that's right.
Where we got called pitching us. And it's the craziest thing to me when that happens. That's also a part of this leadership deal. You know, listen, when you saw, I'm gonna go ahead and say this here. I ain't got a problem saying it. I'm gonna take the Celebration Bowl. All right, here's a perfect example. The national championship game was last night. When they presented the national championship trophy, it was presented to the coach at Indiana. Did you see the Indiana University president on the field? He might have been down there, but you ain't see him. You didn't see him on stage. But one of the things that often happen at HBCUs, the president up front, on stage, it reminds me of Suge Knight at the Hip Hop Awards saying, you know, you want your producer all up in the video dancing. And that's one of those things that we have to be honest about, that is a part of the culture that's also problematic for leadership.
Yes, absolutely. And in our report, we did speak with a veteran president who said that when it comes to the selection, we tend to lean towards the fun, the flashy, the social media-esque type versus those who are the doing type. And it reminds me of what President Wallace says about anybody thinks they can be an HBCU president, but there is a level of gravitas and leadership that is needed that we highlight in our strategy to improve the presidential searches. That, to your point, is not just the board. It is in how we are searching for presidents and selecting the right individual, but then supporting them to that leadership level.
Question, Mustafa.
Well, Dr. Kimbrough and Asia, it's good to see you. My question is this: structure, training, mentoring, those are all incredibly important, like with all the boards that I've been a part of that I've seen to be highly functioning. How much of that will you be focusing on, especially the latter part of training and mentoring?
Yeah, so some of it. So one of the things that we're doing as a part of our broader work is that we are working with some additional organizations that are really leaning into that work. So for UNCF, we really want to lean into the board space, as Roland talked about and Asia mentioned at our Unite conference last year. We had a good number of board members there, but we want to keep growing that more than just the board chair. You need more board members there. But we're also partnering with other groups. Melva is a part of a group called the Higher Education Leadership Foundation Health, and they're doing a lot of training for people who aspire to the presidency. So we partner with them. We partner with an Executive Leadership Institute at Clark Atlanta University. So there are different groups that we're working with that everybody realizes we all have to work together to improve the situation in terms of leadership at HBCUs.
Joe?
Talked about this a bit, but just wanted to dig in on it a little bit more. There's this, I think I understand why it's happening. You're expressing why there's a leadership vacuum, the leadership's not what it needs to be, et cetera. Training is important, et cetera. But I'm wondering out loud how this happens when we all know that the lifeblood of university, among other things, is the ability to fundraise. We also know that predominantly white institutions are struggling now that are in the $100 to $250 million endowment space. Most predominantly black universities are colleges, universities, HBCUs aren't in that category at all. So how do we miss that historically and even now when you need continuity in order to be able to fundraise, in order to build buildings, in order to get folks the support that they need so that they can come, their first generation, they're more modestly incomed, et cetera. How do we miss that when it's so much more important, particularly for HBCUs?
Let me add to that for Walter and Asia. So Walter, do you believe that this is part of this? If you do not come from, and I guess I'm gonna use a sports analogy. When you work on a team, and it is a clearly defined culture, and it's established, and you have processes, and you have systems, and you are the right way of doing things, the wrong way of doing things. Nick Saban talks about that in terms of how he operated with his coaches. So when you leave that system, then when you go, you've learned a proper system. Unfortunately, there are people who may be very well becoming a president who worked in systems that were not fully functioning. And so all you know is dysfunction, and you're sort of bringing that as opposed to coming from a place where you learn the right way things are done, and you bring that with you, and then you now add your pieces to it.
Yeah, I think it's important to know those systems and to implement them. So it's not just the president, it's the president knowing I need to have the right people in place that also understand systems. When I got to Dillard, you know, most of that fundraising was post-Katrina fundraising, but we stopped doing some of our basic things, annual campaign, major gifts. So I hired a chief advancement officer who now is a senior vice president for UNCF to help us reestablish the systems. That was important. And so it goes to your point too, Joe, is that you have to have the stability. One of the things that I think people should have learned the first time Mackenzie Scott gave money, there was a study done. If you had an interim president or a lot of turnover, you didn't get any money. They were very clear about we want stability. And so people should have learned then that they're like, we don't trust that. And so foundations look at it, major donors, you're exactly right. So when people make decisions that are not good in terms of a lot of transitions, you will cut off everything. And so I don't know why people don't get it, because it's very clear. You stay the longer, and it's hard for somebody to come in initially and get a lot of money. It can be done. That doesn't happen often. Most of the time, you have to be there for a while. You develop relationships. People want to know, are you stable? Is the institution stable?
That's how Spelman got that huge check because of the stability of leadership. Asia, on that point, again, I'm going to use sports. A fan ain't going to keep buying season tickets if you keep firing your head coach every 2 or 3 years. So if that's the case in sports, that's damn sure going to be the case. A cat ain't cutting no check if you are sitting here, the president of a university, and you constantly firing the president.
Roland and Joe, to your point, when we think about stability and continuity, we also have to think about it in terms of faculty. So it is the checks being cut, but it's also the student lives that are being impacted, the faculty lives that are being impacted, the community that our HBCUs sit in. It goes beyond just resources and one person in the seat, but it has a ripple effect that trickles down, across, upwards, sideways, everywhere. And we have to really think about that in terms of continuity.
Where can people go to see the report? Is it public, and where can they go?
Yeah, the report is public. You can go to uncf.org. It's also on LinkedIn for both UNCF and as well as UNCF Institute for Capacity Building. Both of those locations have the full report. And as I said, we're going to continue this work because the next phase is how do we keep working with our partners to make sure that we're still strengthening those who want to be presidents, but now to start looking at what do successful boards look like? What do they do? And then let's get people to replicate that, because that's what we need to really improve. It's just there's way too much turnover, and we've got to solve that.
The last point I'll say this here, I think is also part of that piece when we talk about the president. Also know where you're going. I have a saying, and I know Melvin going to get a kick out of this. I have a saying, and listen, this is my 13th Black-owned media experience. And this is what I've said numerous times. You cannot act like you at the Palm restaurant when you got Golden Corral money.
Right.
So you got to know what you're walking into. You got to know what you're stepping. I see you laughing over that, Melva. I see you laughing at that, but that's my point. And there have been people, guys, can you please switch to Melva? Thank you.
Why you want to switch to me?
No, but I'm serious. It's like, I mean, like you gotta know that you may have come from somewhere where they had some dollars, but if you going somewhere, you can't bring that same attitude. You gotta recognize what the institution's capacity is and build to that.
That's right. That is so right. And you know, it is, we make this stuff look easy, right? And I think that's the problem, because our systems are broken and sometimes our people are broken. And we have to, as HBCU presidents and boards, we have to realize that this is different, okay? This is different. And just because you slept at a Holiday Inn last night does not mean you can do this job. I also want to thank Walter Kimbrough for doing this work. He has been an advocate for so many HBCUs. Dr. Kimbrough knows that the presidents lean on him all the time. We're in a group text message that never ends because we rely on him. We love him. We care about him. And we expect for him to, lead for us and to fight for us in the trenches. And I'm grateful for him. So grateful for him. And you, Roland, for always being an advocate for HBCUs.
Folks, this is all about growth. It's about going to the next level. So, Asia, we appreciate it. Walter, we appreciate it. Again, go to uncf.org to see the report. And if you are a student or a graduate, but also if you're a parent, feel free. You need to be seeing this as well, because these are the type of questions that you need to be asking of presidential leadership, of boards as well. And as I said, I think folk need to understand that, listen, you're sending thousands of dollars. A lot of these private HBCUs cost a whole lot of money, and don't think you should not be able to ask these questions and demand that level of leadership.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. This was not planned, but we're going to talk about next what the hell happened at Morris Brown today. And y'all know I really got something to say, so y'all might want to buckle up. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it, a QR code right here. That's for credit cards as well. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037 0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
This week on the other side of change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion in higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League, and I'm watching the Black Star Network.
All right, y'all, we just sat here and talked about when it comes to HBCU culture and stuff like that. My God, let's talk about Lord Morris Brown. A week ago, y'all, we reported right here on the show that Morris Brown fired its president, Dr. Kevin James. Okay? That's what they told us. Fired Dr. Kevin James. Here we are, a week later, he's now being reinstated. You're like, what? I'm sorry, what the world just happened? Yeah, they sent out a statement to everyone stating that he was being reinstated. Now, keep in mind, they fired him, did not say why he was being fired. They did not share with anybody the reasons, anything along those lines. They announced that an interim president, a board member, was going to be coming in. And this is what dropped today. The Board of Trustees of Morris Brown College issues the following statement regarding Dr. Kevin James as 19th president. The board today announces its decision to rescind the termination of Dr. Kevin James. As part of a mutually agreed upon resolution on January 16, 2026, he accepted the invitation to return as the president of Morris Brown College. Dr. James has served Morris Brown College with distinction for 7 years, leading the institution through a period of significant progress, restoration, and renewed national visibility. His leadership, vision, and steadfast commitment have been instrumental to the college's advancement and stability. The board looks forward to Dr. James' continued leadership, vision, and dedication to the college's advancement. Now, this is where it's crazy. After careful review, the board determined that Dr. James' separation from the college did not fully comply with the procedural and contractual requirements outlined in its employment agreement. As fiduciaries of this institution, the board recognizes its responsibility to adhere to established governance standards and to correct actions that fall short of those obligations. The board acknowledges that this period has been disruptive and painful for members of the Morris Brown community. The board deeply regrets the harm this has caused our institution, students, families, donors, supporters, and Dr. James. While correcting a governance and process failure is necessary, the board recognizes that this action alone does not resolve broader concerns that have been raised regarding workplace culture, trust, and the experience of employees. The board takes seriously the concerns voiced by members of our community and affirms that retaliation against individuals who raise concerns in good faith is not acceptable. Now, the board is committed to ensuring that appropriate processes exist for concerns to be raised safely, reviewed fairly, and addressed responsibly. To that end, the board will take additional steps to review governance practices and institutional processes with the goal of restoring and strengthening trust, transparency, and accountability across the Morris Brown community. Morris Brown College remains steadfastly focused on its mission, its students, and its future. Morris Brown Board of Trustees. This right here, y'all, this lays out here members of the Morris Brown Board. Go to my iPad. You see it right here. Right Reverend Bishop Michael Mitchell, Mr. Darrell Hicks, Mr. Terry Comer, Dr. Kevin James ex officio, Muhammad Bala, Reverend Dr. Gwendolyn Boyd, Pedro Bryant, Dr. James Ures Jr., Dr. Lisa Herring, Mr. Gregory Jackson, Mr. Eric Thornton, Mr. Antoine Walker, Miss Sandra Mason, Miss Lisa Tolliver, Mr. Clarence Williamson, Dr. Marvin Brown, ex officio, Miss Kyla Hicks, ex officio, SGA President Morris Brown. Y'all, the statement that Morris Brown College released today is 100% bullshit. It is shameful. It is despicable. Let me be perfectly clear, okay? There are two main responsibilities of a board of trustees or a board of an organization. Two. First, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the institution or the organization. That's number one. You don't screw up the money. You watch the money like a hawk. You spend appropriately. You make cuts when necessary. You watch. You have more inflow than outflow. But the second is governance. Number two, your job is to deal with the president. You don't run the institution. You deal with the president. I've been a 4-time board member now, National Association of Black Journalists. Do you know who we hire? The executive director. Do you know who manages the staff? The executive director. ED screws up, we getting his or her ass. It's governance. And so here you have a board of trustees admitting they are incompetent. Admitting it. They are admitting their level of incompetence. You mean to tell me that they actually posted in a press release after careful review, the board determined that Dr. James, come on, go to it, Dr. James' separation from the college did not fully comply with the procedural and contractual requirements outlined in his employment agreement. That means you dumbasses fired the president and you didn't even read his fucking contract before you did? Do y'all know how dumb that is? Y'all, I have fired a lot of people. I've hired a lot of people. And if there's somebody who has a contract and I want to terminate them, do you know what's the first thing I do? I get a copy of their contract. And then I read the contract. And then I say, how long is the contract? I then go to the for cause section of the contract. I then go to the without cause section of the contract. I then study the penalties in the contract. I look at it and say, what is it going to cost us if we get rid of this person? Do we have to pay health care? Do we have to pay dental? Do we have to pay into a retirement account? I look at all of that. That's what real leaders do. You don't fire somebody and not look at their contract. When they fired him, you know the first thing that I did? I called him. Sure did. Now, we're not friends, but I've met him. I've been to the campus like many other presidents who I can call. And what did he tell me? What he posted in his Facebook. I got a contract. It's up in 2029. He said he just had an evaluation. Let me explain to y'all how easy it is to get sued. If you fire somebody with 3 years left on their contract and they just had an evaluation, let me tell you something. That means that when you get sued, you then have to explain in depositions and to the court what transpired between their review and your decision to fire them, and was it for cause? And so if it wasn't for cause, then you're going to have to negotiate a settlement. So let it be as clear as I possibly can. Do you know what needs to happen? And all this little, the members, we know it's been tough or whatever. I'm very clear. That also, by the way, I wouldn't be shocked by this. I know the press release said the Board of Trustees. I would not be shocked that there's no record of the entire board voting on this. I will put money that this was not a unanimous decision to fire James. I bet you the whole board wasn't on the call. I would love to know what the actual vote was to fire him and then what the vote was to reinstate him. So let me say this here. Every board member of Morris Brown College who participated in the decision to fire Dr. Kevin James must resign today. They all should resign. What you have done is you have grossly embarrassed your university. You have shown that you are incompetent to lead. You have proven that you cannot be trusted to lead. If you are a board member, you are admitting that you participated in the firing of a president and you didn't even follow proper governance, and you didn't even follow procedures, you didn't even follow the basics of an HR manual, then you have no business being on the Board of Trustees. And I remember the press release that's sent out. And I don't know who he is, but I'll say this here. The Right Reverend Bishop Michael Mitchell, the presiding prelate of the 6th District of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the chair of the board, you need to resign. You need to quit today, because this clearly says you have no business leading the Morris Brown College Board if you did not even have enough common sense to ask to see his contract first and to say, hey, General Counsel, Are we doing this properly? Are we following proper procedures? Sounds to me like y'all made an arbitrary decision, y'all didn't read nothing, and then he exposed your level of incompetence, and now, a week later, you've got to look like a dog with his tail caught between his legs and like, oh, we mutually agreed to come back. No, that ain't what happened. You had no choice but to rescind it because you knew you were going to get your asses sued and you knew you were going to lose in court, and then you're going to have to pay this man 3 years of his contract and then pay an interim president. This is flat out crazy. What happened here, y'all, makes no sense whatsoever. This should never happen. Not with a college, not with an HBCU. This shouldn't happen with a nonprofit with $10 in the bank. This is basic. And I'm telling you right now, if somebody was willing to give Morris Brown $1 million or $100,000 or $10,000 or $100,000, I don't have the confidence in the Morris Brown board to give y'all $10 when you come out with a statement and you admit you don't know what the hell you are doing. And I know somebody might be saying, damn, Ro, that's hardcore. No, it's not. Y'all, we just went through a search for executive director of the National Association of Black Journalists. I knew it was jacked up, and we knew there were problems with it. Do you know what happened? We had a general board meeting. It was on a Saturday. We had an election, and I got elected to the board on Friday. We didn't get sworn in until Sunday. And we had the meeting on Saturday. You know what I did? I sat there and I questioned every single board member on the process. Did you vote on the contract? No, we did not. Did you actually see the details of the contract? No, I did not. Do y'all know why I was asking all those questions? Because you know what? I actually read the goddamn Constitution. I understood that we have an operating procedures in NABJ and we have a constitution. But I also know as somebody who's actually written constitutions, and being a parliamentarian, anybody would tell you that your operating procedures do not override your constitution. Your constitution always overrides your operating procedures. They voted on a new ED based upon the operating procedures and not the Constitution. The Constitution clearly states that, guess what? That the board is to vote on it. And so there were board members who clearly had not even read the Constitution. Do you know what the Constitution is for a board? It's literally your damn manual. It's your damn owner's manual. That's what you do. When you join a board, the first thing you do is say, can I please get a copy of the board constitution or the operating procedures so I can understand exactly what my job and duties are. So then I read through the Constitution and I then go, here are the duties of the president, here's the duty of the vice chair or this treasury and the secretary. It's real basic. And so when you read the Constitution, you sit there and go, I need to understand what's going on. Let me help y'all out. This ain't to, oh man, when you 57 years old. No, let me help y'all out. I was a national student representative on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists in 1989. And the student rep did not have a vote on the board until one day I was sitting here reading the Constitution and reading the bylaws. And then I noticed something. In the bylaws, this was actually in January of 1990. This took place at a board meeting at the Porter Institute in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I was sitting here studying the Constitution for a year, y'all. And I was sitting here saying, I see a problem here. Because in the bylaws, it said that the national student representative did not have a vote on the board of directors. But then over here, I was studying the Constitution, and the Constitution said the board is comprised of the following individuals. And I said, well, wait a minute, that's weird. The Constitution, the bylaws say I can't vote, but the Constitution lists me as a member of the board. And so then I'm sitting here reading, I'm like, well, wait a minute. The Constitution does not explicitly state that the president, the vice president, the regional directors actually have a vote. Constitution simply implies, it assumes they have a vote. I said, well, wait a minute. The bylaws and the Constitution are in conflict. And when the bylaws of the Constitution are in conflict, Constitution overrides the bylaws. So I went to the parliamentarian, Jackie Jones, and said, Jackie, let me ask you a question. This is what the bylaws say, and this is what the Constitution says. I said, so am I correct to say that over here, I have a right to vote. Over here, I don't have a right to vote. And over here, doesn't this override that? She says, yes, it does. I said, correct me if I'm wrong. You're the parliamentarian. You have the final authority to weigh in on any parliamentary procedures or the Constitution or the bylaws. She says, yes, I am. I said, so what that tells me is I can vote. She says, that is true. And we walked into the board meeting, and when I sprung it on them, all hell broke loose. You know why? Because I actually read the damn documents. That's called governance. Y'all, that was 1989. I was a college student. So you mean to tell me, go to my iPad, you mean to tell me that all of these people who are sitting on the board of directors of Morris Brown College, the presiding prelate, a financial advisor, the founder and CEO of Impact Data, you mean to tell me that the CFO of the city of Atlanta, executive search consultant, the president CEO of Uni National Bank, education consultant, youth advocate, the president of Propel Center, the president CEO of Jackson Asset Management, the founding president of Firm Care Life Sharing, let's see, the president of the National Alumni Association, and the director of Accountability Courts, DeKalb County. Ain't that something? Accountability Courts. Then you have the second alumni rep, retired assistant director of student support services, DeKalb County Colleges, and the manager of community relations for Georgia Power, and the head of communications for CSBB Wells Fargo. And then you have an ex officio faculty rep and an SGA president. You mean to tell me that folk with titles as president and CEO and founder did not have enough common sense to actually read your own governance procedures and the contract of your president? And now y'all look like some fools firing Dr. Kevin James a week ago, reinstating him a week later, and we're supposed to go, hey, it's business as usual. No, this is weak, impotent leadership. And if you are a graduate of Morris Brown, if you are a donor of Morris Brown, if you are a student of Morris Brown, if you're the parent of a student of Morris Brown, you should be embarrassed with what this Board of Trustees has done. The only thing, the righteous thing that they should do is every person that participated in the firing of Dr. Kevin James should tender their resignation tonight, because what they have done is failed as a member of the Board of Trustees. My next guest, Dr. Erin Lynch, she actually called it. She said, oh, they're going to reinstate him. She's the president of Quality Education for the Minorities Network. And you dropped some Instagram videos and you said, they're going to reinstate him. Watch, it's going to happen next week. And boom, like clockwork, it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's for every reason that you called, right? The data just didn't make sense as to why they got rid of him. This was clearly an emotional decision, and it was not evidence-based. So, yeah.
And here's the deal, okay? I'm not here to defend Dr. James. I don't know why they made the decision. Again, I don't know. I know of him. We've met. So I ain't got no inside information. I know that somebody posted something, said they were a whistleblower, they raised some concerns. So I have no idea. And what was crazy is the first thing, I called him out from day one. You don't fire a president and you don't even say for cause. You don't even say why. They just not like, okay, he fired, thank you, we moving along, here's the interim president. I was like, this don't look right.
Yeah, and it didn't look right? I mean, everything from the beginning in terms of how they put out the press release, there are ways to be able to protect HR decisions where you can reference policy without violating confidentiality for personnel issues, right? So we saw this at Lincoln University when they investigated the president and his staff after Candy's suicide. And the board came out with a statement and they said very clearly, here's what we did in the investigation. Here's the policy we followed. Here's what we did. So you can do that, right? A board can do that with a very savvy communications person and really good counsel. So the fact that they tried to hide, and there were so many folks on the internet trying to hide behind, well, they can't talk about it because it's a personnel issue. That's not completely accurate, right? And they brought the only reason, another thing that came up, the only reason they brought him back was because they couldn't afford the buyout, the payout. And that's not accurate either, because the documents show the evidence that they likely have what's called DNO Insurance, Directors and Officers Insurance. And so if you look at the 990s, This is documented in the 990s. And so they're paying about $21,000 a year for insurance management fees, which is likely DNO Insurance. So if they fire someone, they can do an insurance claim, just like if I wreck my car, I can do an insurance claim to be paid in full, right? Or to be reinstated in terms of the loss. But you cannot file a claim for DNO if you violated your own policies. And that's exactly the letter that they put out. So the post that I did, the op-ed that I wrote last week, they had one of two options. They were going to have to come up with a stronger letter as to why they were standing on business and keeping him fired. And then it was going to go to court. And then it was going to have to go through a series of discovery. So they would have to show, just like you said, or they would have to reinstate him. So they only really had two options based on the publicly available information. So regardless as to the whistleblower stuff, regardless as to the hearsay that was going on in the internet, actual documents themselves support that this was one of two actions that they could do.
I don't take lightly calling for a whole board to resign, but this is egregious. This is so basic. If you've been on boards before, if you're sitting on the board and the chair or the vice chair or board member comes and says, I think we need to fire the president, boom, red flags go up. What's the basis? Why are we doing so? What's the action we're taking? What's precipitating this? Has there been any board investigation? Is it an internal investigation? Is it an external investigation? Can we see the reasons why? When did we start this year? When did we last do a review? Oh, the review took place just 2 or 3 months ago. Okay, so what transpired from the end of our review and now that then will justify us firing the president? Hey, could you please get us a copy of the president's contract so we can actually see the for cause and the without cause terms and clauses that are in the contract? Those are literally the most basic questions. I could ask those questions, Aaron, in my sleep. I could be in a coma and ask those questions. Those are the most basic fundamental questions you ask before you even think about voting to fire a president.
Can we go back to the point that you really made that was brilliant about the fiduciary responsibilities and governance responsibilities? So here's why I'm really nervous for this board and for Morris Brown, which is one of the nation's best HBCUs. Like, we love the school. Here's why I'm really nervous. Again, in the publicly available documents in the 990s that institutions have to file when they have 501c3 status, in Section 6, I want to make sure I get this right, Section 6 of the 990s, there's a section called governance and governing body and management. Question number 8 literally asks, I'm going to read this for you because this is why it's so important. Question number 8 asks, did the organization contemporaneously document the meeting of written action undertaken during governing body and each committee meeting? So the federal government, for your 501c3 status, you have to document all actions taken by the board, which means minutes, which means attendance, right? And so to your point earlier, you're assuming that there's no documentation of this. Well, if there isn't documentation of this action taken by the board, they're now violating what could potentially put their 990s at risk or put their 501c3 at risk. And that is massive. So if the board does not have documentation, they then put the entire institution and its foundational ability to bring in money at risk. And so they need to resign. Right. So I typically don't speak on that, but the documents that are publicly available very clearly say this is something that has to be done. All actions have to be documented and they have to be available either in some sort of contemporaneously or written documentation.
Before I go to the panel, this is the final one I'm sorry. This is a further example that exposes the magnitude of the incompetence of the Morris Brown College Board of Trustees. You are about to go through an accreditation review. Listen, I was a student at Texas A&M University, and Dr. Charles Self, who was the head of the journalism department, met with me and said, Roland, here's what's going on. The accreditation folks are coming in. We want you to be one of the students meeting with them, and here's what this means. I was a college student, and I understand that the last thing you do, I mean the absolute last thing you do, is do some dumb shit like erroneously fire your president a few months before an accreditation review, because that action alone could lead to you losing your accreditation. Like the financial aspect and the decision, and you're like, what are you thinking? What did we just hear from Asia and Dr. Kimbrough? Accreditation folks want to see stability and leadership. They want to see proper governance from board and fiduciary responsibility. So to your point, you fire a president that's exposing you to potentially paying him off. Ain't like Morris Brown got deep pockets. So you can't be trying to be paying two people at one time. That's how insane this is. And it's like, who in the hell voted for that, knowing that's right around the corner? That makes this even crazier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would respectfully push back, and that I would not say that it would be impossible to get through accreditation. But you also need to look at the leadership changes that have occurred most recently, right? So they tried to put Dr. James out. He just got a new provost. So those two top positions, to be new and or gone, would be highly problematic for somebody to lead the accreditation on the campus, right? So you're absolutely right. It was not a data-based decision. It was not an evidence-based move. It was grounded in something else that I don't know. But I just know the data it didn't make sense. Didn't make sense based on the data.
Melv, I'm gonna go to you first. Listen, one of the fellow HBCUs, you can weigh in however you want to weigh in. But when this happened, I was like, here was the first thing that jumped out at me, Melv. And again, I'm a journalist, so the first thing I went was, why? Then I read it. I went, I see no. Why? And then, because like literally, I got the call at 5:59. We go live at 6. Somebody sent me the text, and I read it, and I went, hold up. And I saw James's Facebook post. I called him and said, hey, this real? And he was like, yeah. He said, I'm shocked, blah, blah. He said, I'm gonna get my lawyer. We'll be talking in the next few days. And then a couple days later, I see Aaron's post, and then I'm sitting here going, and I'm asking people around, like, this makes no sense to me. And then I was like, how did you? And then when this statement came out today, that's when I went, oh my God, this is insane. They are literally admitting that we didn't follow damn procedures. That's just crazy to me.
You've said a lot tonight, friend, and I didn't have a lot to say because I felt like I would just have to go to Cardi B courtroom meme faces, and like that's all I had, okay? Because we're all mystified, we're all confused, and
Okay. I'll put it here. Okay, Melvin, let me take them out. You're a president. Let me take that out. You're a president. If your board has some issues with your leadership, I would assume you would like for your board chair or to say, hey, can you come talk to the board? We have some issues. Lay those out, okay? Let me address your concerns, or let me respond. Allow me to fix whatever. That's actually what you do. The whole point, firing the president is like the last thing you want to do. You want to do a lot of things before you get to that point. Now, sometimes some egregious stuff where remember the Jackson State president got busted with a prostitute? Yeah, his ass got fired immediately, so he was gone. Okay, he was gone. Yeah, I mean that's just fact. I mean that hit the news and everything. But the bottom line is that's what you do. What you don't want is literally to wake up and go, "What? I'm fired," and then it's like the first thing you do when you get fired is, y'all didn't read my contract. That's the first thing you do.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. So, and the other piece is, when you think about boards, I am also on a higher ed board, which I'm one of the unique presidents that serves as a president and also serves as a board member for another university. And here is what you have to think of. In this unique opportunity of being on a board, you have to think about the entirety of the institution and knowing that in just a few months, and I'm not sure exactly when so Morris Brown is accredited by the Transnational Association for Christian Colleges and Schools. It's called TRACS. And they will have a reaffirmation coming up the end of this month or February. This is critical. This is a critical review, and Morris Brown is, and I'm not, it's in a fragile state. But for any institution that is about to go through a review, it's the Super Bowl. It is the Super Bowl. And so disrupting the ecosystem at this time is a little difficult. You kind of got low cards at this point. If you know that you have to present yourself, you have to be able to show the institution to be, financially stable, academically stable. The facilities must be in a certain place, and you need your quarterback to be in optimal position to be able to showcase the institution in the best light. And so right now, my message is to my friend, because he is my friend, and I do know him very well. Good brother, good person. And right now, I encourage you, Kevin James, to stay the course. You have to get back in the game and refocus yourself on the institution to move it forward in spite of everything that is going on around you. And that means the board and what's happening.
But I gotta ask you this here. I gotta ask you this here.
Mm-hmm.
Before I go to Mustafa and Joe, I gotta ask you this here. How do you move forward as a president and trust your board when this happens? That is a significant breach right there. How do you even trust talking to them, sharing with them? How do you not walk around paranoid that, they're going to be sitting here looking for any reason to terminate me after this kind of thing happens? That has to be top of mind.
Yeah, it is top of mind. And right now, what you don't want to do is slip in something big like this accreditation review. And right now, your livelihood is on the line. This is what matters. And that accreditation review is what matters in this moment. And if that doesn't go well, then potentially, the board might have some opportunities to say, to dig deeper in that, and whatever happens there. But you have to get your head in the game and get focused on this review, because that is critical. Morris Brown has come back. We've all enjoyed the success story, the Hail Mary. He's gotten them, to this point with community support, with so many others in the city of Atlanta supporting Morris Brown coming back. And right now we're all looking to you, Kevin James, my friend, to make this successful, and to, again, it may not be trust right there right now, but and that's going to be an uphill battle for them to repair that, if it even is some reparations there. But I tell you what, right now you have to focus on this review and get that institution through the finish line. And that's what matters right now.
Joe, you're a lawyer. If you had a client came to you, said, "Hey, Joe, they just fired me," you gonna say, "Dog, we about to get paid." They didn't fire you for cause. We got a 3-year contract. You just had a great review. Yeah, we got us a good case here, player.
No doubt about it. The reason why, we look both ways before we cross the street is because when we walk into the street, if we don't look both ways before we cross the street, we could get hit by a car. And so if you're getting ready to fire somebody, I tell people this all the time. I just went back and forth on one of these that was much smaller, shall we say. We deal with big ones, but sometimes as a public service, you help some folks that are close by that don't have big cases, but it's very important to them. And the first thing I'm looking for as an employee's lawyer is what the rules actually say. Employers get in trouble all the time for not following their own rules. So the first thing I'm looking for is how this thing is regulated. Is there a contract? Is there for cause? What actually happened, etc. And so he has them dead to rights. And that's why they brought him back, because they look like hell anyway. I mean, let's just keep it real. They look like hell anyway. I would argue that he has damages for even being undone for just a week. And I would also argue that, God forbid, they don't get the accreditation. It's not so clear that it's just because of him, because now he's got to make a presentation to the accreditation folk. It's not just a because presentation, it's a despite presentation, particularly if the board stays around. He's going to have to put the best, a point that was just made, he's going to have to put the best face on this thing. He is the key, because the accreditation folk have got to believe him, because he's the stable one who's got his head on straight that they brought back. But there's no question that it would be a continuing discussion, to my mind, even if it's not resolved right away and I come back and my client comes back, because of the urgency of the situation, which has been spoken to, the extent of his actual damages. I would argue that that's yet to be determined. And I would argue that, of course, he had them dead to rights. And hopefully, for Morris Brown's sake, they're able to get this thing together and keep it together, because they got terrible, nothing like having terrible timing. They really did something that had the potential, in a worst case, to undo themselves in a major, major way.
Mustafa, then a final comment from Aaron. Mustafa, go.
That folks have shared has been incredibly important. So first of all, it was just messy. It's been messy from the first time that we've heard about this, the language that was used, and then how they've colored it also. When you really read that letter, and the language that they left in there makes you question certain things and wonder about characters and all these other types of things. You just don't need to do that. For me, one of the additional important parts is the students, right? I appreciate earlier the guests who shared about Morris Brown being a fantastic institution. I agree with that. I spent plenty of time on the AU Center. You know, I'm always wondering how students are being impacted by, you know, what they're seeing and hearing, and wondering what the future looks like for them, especially since, you know, MBC has now been able to come back and become that institution that so many of us had always prayed that it would be. So I'm just hoping that the students are okay, and all these conversations about the president and the board, which are incredibly important, and people unpacking that. You know, we spent time on that, but no one has really talked about the students and the impact to them. So I just wanted to bring that into our conversation, whether it's Dr. Wallace or other guests, if they have all those years of experience and they want to share, you know, sort of how it impacts the students. I think that would be important for us to close out this segment.
Yeah, Aaron, because at the end of the day, here's the deal. You're now putting yourself at risk. Now you're going to have students who say, and parents, hey, I don't know about sending my kid there. Walter made the point earlier that if you got a Mackenzie Scott sitting out there, they may be considering Morris Brown because of your turnaround. They're not putting your name at the bottom of the list because they're like, hold up, y'all can't even fire a president, right? And that's what I'm saying. That the reason I call for the resignation is because this board failed the most basic principle of a board of trustees, to properly govern the institution. This action right here just says, we didn't know what the hell we were doing, and then they admitted it. They literally put it in. That's even more incompetent. You put your screw up in the press release.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I would say to those who are questioning whether or not what this means, don't stop supporting Morris Brown, right? If anything, this is the time to bring those checkbooks out, right? Because they're going to need additional resources to help rebuild some of the infrastructure to make sure something like this never happens.
But Aaron, I can't, I'm sorry. I can't cut a check until, I get your point. No, not just me. If I am a parent, if I'm a student, if I'm a graduate, if I'm a corporate donor, I can't cut a check until this is addressed. I cannot. Damn this sheet of paper. I'm gonna need. Let me pull it up here. Hold on. I'm gonna need the presiding prelate. I'm gonna need the vice chair. I'm going to go down again. I'm going to need Michael Mitchell, Daryl Hicks, Terry Comer, Muhammad Bala, Gwendolyn Boyd, Pedro Bryant, James Ewers, Lisa Herring, Gregory Jackson, Eric Thornton, Antoine Walker, Sandra Mason, Lisa Tolliver, Clarence Todd Williamson. I'm going to need them to explain what the hell happened, because I can't fork over Jack, because if you did this, you're going to screw something else up soon if you can't even get the most basic thing right.
I mean, that's fair, right? But what I'm saying is the money doesn't go to the board, right? So the boards do not have operational governance of the finances of the institution. They are supposed to overlook the policy around that. They're supposed to help support the strategy behind that. They're supposed to bring their own resources so that the coffers of the institution can be filled. And so what I would say for those who have questions around that right now, support the leadership, and continue doing that, because we don't want the students to suffer because of something that non-employees of the institution chose to do.
Hey, I understand that, but I'm going to tell you right now, when the Houston Independent School District was looking to fire the principal of Jack Yates High School, and they really couldn't explain it, I stood in front of that HISD and I said, if y'all make this move, I'm going to do two things. One, you're giving me my $25,000 back, what I created for scholarships for Jack Yates High School students that I gave to the school district to manage. Now, I said, I'm going to take it for myself and then do it myself. I said, two, I'm going to do my show outside of this school building every single damn week. You have a school board meeting, and I'm going to stay on your ass until y'all do something. When that back room took a vote, they didn't fire that principal. My whole point is this here. In fact, each speaker only had like 60 seconds or 2 minutes, and one of the board members said, well, because of who Roland Martin is, let's just give him as much time as he needs. That's exactly what happened. I'm sorry. You got to use whatever lever, what this action, and again, when I was looking at your videos, I was like, let's see what they do. But when I read this letter, and when I saw that they admitted that they failed the most basic stuff, I have zero trust or confidence in the leadership of the existing Morris Brown College Board of Trustees. If you can't even ask for the man's contract first before you fire him, I can't trust you to negotiate a facilities contract, a food services contract.
So the board shouldn't be doing that.
No.
The board shouldn't be doing that at all.
Hold up. I can't trust you to hire the next president. I can't trust you to do a damn thing. If you can't even get it right to fire somebody, I damn sure can't trust you to hire. This is really a basic, fundamental thing. And I'm telling you, I just went through this listen, it was some board members of NABJ not happy with me, and I looked them in the eye and said, how in the hell did you join this board and in 2 years you never read the Constitution? That is your governing document. There's no amount of excuses that I would accept when somebody admits to me, yeah, I never read it. I'm sorry. They got to go. The board of trustees has to go, because this does not instill confidence in anybody, and it's a shame we're saying that, but they brought this on themselves by this dumbass action. Yep. Dr. Aaron Lynch, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Let me thank Joe, Melva, as well as Mustafa for being on today's show. I surely appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Melva, I look forward to coming back down to Austin, Houston, Tillerson. Y'all better have some barbecue when I come back. Let me go to a commercial break. We come back. Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble. Back in a moment.
This week on the other side of change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, and higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm TD Jakes, and you are watching the Black Star Network.
Folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
Roland, the U.S. Department of Justice is planning to subpoena Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. It is connected to an investigation into state officials' handling of increased ICE operations in the state. The DOJ has reportedly opened a probe into Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, alleging possible obstruction of federal law enforcement. The DOJ is relying on a law that is rarely used, a federal statute with roots in the Civil War era. It was one of the statutes listed in a memo from Attorney General Pam Bondi last month. And it Bondi spelled out in the statutes that she is wanted federal prosecutors to use to target individuals that she dubbed as domestic terrorists. Both Walz and Frey have been vocal about their opposition to federal agents being in Minnesota. Pardoned January 6 writer is scheduled to be tried on child molestation charges next month following his July arrest. It comes nearly 6 months after Andrew Johnson and more than 1,500 January 6 riot defendants were pardoned by President Trump. Johnson is accused of molesting a victim for months in Hernando County, Florida, and is being held in custody before his trial date of February 9th. According to court filings, he allegedly tried to silence the victim in the case by offering a payout. Johnson is accused of molesting a victim for months in Hernando County and is being held in custody before his trial on February 9th. Well, former NFL player Sam Beal is still missing. His family is still pleading for help 7 months later. He was last seen on July 13th of last year when authorities say he dropped off his girlfriend at a family's house and headed toward Virginia Beach. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System database, 29-year-old Beal did not bring anything with him aside from his clothes that he was wearing, a pair of slides, and his wallet that contained his banking card and driver's license. The girlfriend's car was later recovered in Virginia Beach with Samuel's shoes and socks on the floor of the front passenger seat. Beal's a native of Grand Rapids, Michigan, played 3 seasons at Western Michigan, and was a third-round selection by the Giants in the 2018 NFL Supplemental Draft. Anyone with information about Sam Beal should call the Virginia Beach, Virginia Police Department at 757-385-4141. A baby in Oregon is struggling to recover from infant botulism after drinking contaminated by Heart Baby formula. The milk was donated through a program that aims to help poor and homeless families. 10-month-old Deshaun Carter had been in the hospital twice and still remains on the feeding tube after contracting the dangerous infection. Botulism is a rare, severe illness caused by contaminated food or infected wounds. It sickened more than 50 babies across the United States. His mother, Angel, says she received a can of ByHeart formula from a caseworker with the Oregon Department of Human Services in early November, just days before the national recall of that same product. Well, a new symbol has entered the sneakerverse ahead of MLK Day. The Honor the King sneaker, part of Nike's LeBron 23 collection, pays tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Lorraine Motel. That's the site of his assassination and a lasting symbol of resilience within the civil rights movement. The sneaker's bright teal colorway echoes the iconic hue of the historic motel, while gold accents on the tongue and Nike check nod to another king, LeBron James. The word equality is featured near the heel, underscoring the shared values of justice and dignity that connect both legacies. More than a shoe, the design serves as a wearable reminder that Dr. King's message still walks with us today, Roland.
All right, let me go. You know what? I had no intentions on doing this here, so but let me go ahead and lead this here. That shoe. That is the dumbest shit I've seen in my life. Is the panel still with me? The panel still with me? I said, no, Melva there. I see Melva. Melva there, good. Melva's still here. This is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. Okay, let me explain something to y'all, okay? You put out a shoe that has the same color scheme of the hotel where he got killed. Okay, let me help. The shoe is not to celebrate the National Civil Rights Museum. You are tying the shoe to MLK and the tie between now granted, he stayed there before, but the tie between MLK and the Lorraine Motel is a murder scene. If you're going to do a commemorative shoe, how about you do it with the King Center? But again, if you're going to do a commemorative shoe, how about if you want to do it with the National Civil Rights Museum, then that's what you do. Show the shoe again. Show the shoe again. Show the shoe. So, okay, what? Look, I don't even, it's the color scheme and you know what, just switch to me the other side of the studio. Y'all want to understand how you do a shoe and you want to commemorate? Now, they disbanded because they had some paperwork issues and whatever the hell. But remember the group, Stacy, which camera am I on? Which camera am I on? Come on. Right here? Okay, I'm right here. Right here? Okay, all right, y'all. These are some commemorative shoes. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go on the other side. Get ready to zoom in. Get ready to zoom in. These are some commemorative shoes, y'all. These, zoom in on the desk. Puma did some shoes for the New Georgia Project, okay? Do y'all see these shoes? Zoom in as tight as you can. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. All right, let's focus it. Let's focus it. Okay, all right, can you zoom in tighter? Keep going. I want y'all to see that's as tight as you can go. Okay, all right, now focus. Let's focus. Let's focus. Okay, do y'all see this here? These are commemorative shoes. This is the shoe right here. Yeah, these are commemorative shoes of voting in protest. So this is, you see it and you see the sign. You see NGP, New Georgia Project. You see Puma right here. That's how you do a shoe. You doing a color scheme of the sign of the Lorraine Motel, and you're tying it to King, which is where he got, that is just that's just dumb. Melva, I just don't, look, I appreciate, okay, just stay right there. Just stay right there. No, stay right there, because I'm going to the other side. I just remembered. Y'all, I got a pair, listen, when my homeboy worked at Nike in Chicago, he gave me these shoes. Y'all should be, what y'all do? Y'all should be flipping to this side right here. Y'all know I'm moving. Y'all know I'm moving. You should be flipping from one side to the other. That's what, I got 10 cameras in here. Let's use them. All right, here you go. Y'all, these are, no, other shot. These are some commemorative Nike Black History Month shoes. Okay, so they made these red, black, and green. Okay, they made these shoes here. Okay, all right. That was for Black History Month. That's what these shoes are, for Black History Month. I'm sorry. These LeBron James, MLK, Lorraine Motel shoes, that's just dumb. Melva, I saw that. I said, this don't make no sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a miscue, and it's an opportunity for us to learn, especially Nike and others. And I will say this, I have a dear friend. His name is Dr. Greg Grovey. Shouts out to the only Black-owned business in the domain. It's like the Rodeo Drive of Austin, Texas. He owns a Black-owned shoe store, kicking it. There are people, Nike, that can give you some help when you are making these decisions. You know, you got to run it through the streets, right? You got to ask people. You know, collaboration is truly our superpower, and it's an opportunity to, you know, bring some folks in, talk to the King family, especially if you're going to do something like that honors somebody. It's always good to talk to the people who are closest to the person to make sure that we're honoring appropriately. And so, yeah, it was a miss. And I don't know. They missed.
Yeah, missed badly. That's it. Melba, I appreciate you joining us on the show. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome, my friend.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thanks a lot. All right, folks. Want y'all to support the work we do. First of all, before we go there, I'm going to be speaking at a black church conference tomorrow in Chicago. Brittany Noble's going to be hosting the show tomorrow. I'll have some stuff for y'all on Thursday about that, so I'll let you know about that. So hopefully I can get in and get out. This weather is crazy. We got massive storms that's going to be hitting this country, literally East Coast, Midwest, down to Texas and the South. And so, folks, prepare. Y'all need to check your generators. Be sure to stock up on food and water, because some folks may be literally trapped in their houses for 4 to 5 days. Massive snow and ice is expected to hit the country. And so please prepare. Folks, y'all want to support the work that we do, join our Bring the Funk fan club. Of course, your dollars are critically important for the work that we do. The goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. And so if you want to support us, please do so via Cash App. Use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Click the Cash App Pay button to contribute. That's also for credit cards as well. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037. That's 0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. Also, if you want to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Shopblackstarnetwork.com. So our hats and hoodies and T-shirts and all that good stuff. Also, all of these black-owned products you see right here, y'all, these are on shopblackstarnetwork.com. When you support we support these products, then you are supporting the work that we do. So, of course, you got black-owned toilet paper, you got dolls, steam dolls, you got chips, sauces, we got watches, skincare, prep products, car wax products, candles, all that good stuff, crossword puzzles, you name it. So go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. And, of course, support Fanbase. Download the app. Only less than 100,000 left to raise to hit the $17 million goal. Go to startengine.com/fanbase for more information. Folks, that's it. I'll see you tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!